Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku was mentored by Endeavor from day one. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The world was not built equally. Midoriya Izuku learned this truth at the age of 4, when the doctor looked at an X-ray of his foot, sighed with the weary indifference of a man who had delivered bad news 1,000 times, and shattered a child's universe. But knowing the truth and living it were two very different things. Knowing the fire is hot doesn't prepare you for the sensation of your skin blistering. At 14 years old, Izuku was not just living that truth, he was drowning in it. The late afternoon sun of Mizurufu hung low and heavy, casting long, distorted shadows against the concrete walls of Aldera Junior High. The classroom was empty now, save for the ghosts of mockery that seemed to cling to the chalkboard. Izuku sat alone at his desk, his hands trembling as they hovered over the charred remains of his hero analysis for the future number 13 notebook. Smoke still curled lazily from the spine. The smell was acrid, burned paper and the sickeningly sweet scent of nitroglycerin. If you want to be a hero that badly, there's a quick way to do it. Bakugo Katsuki's voice echoed in Izuku's mind, bouncing around his skull like a pinball, racking up points of misery. Believe that you'll be born with a quirk in the next life, and take a last chance dive off the roof. Izuku's grip on the notebook tightened until his knuckles turned white. He didn't cry. Not yet. He had cried so much over the years that he sometimes felt he had run dry, leaving only a hollow, dusty ache where the tears should have been. Stupid Kaken, Izuku whispered, his voice cracking in the silence of the room. If I really jumped, that would be instigation of suicide. You couldn't be a hero then. He stood up, his legs feeling like lead, and shoved the ruined notebook into his yellow backpack. He walked out of the school, the weight of the day pressing down on his shoulders like a physical burden. He moved through the streets on autopilot, a ghost haunting his own life. He didn't hate Bakugo. That was the worst part. He admired him. He admired the strength, the confidence, the absolute certainty of his own victory. Bakugo was everything Izuku wasn't. Bakugo was a winner. Izuku was a pebble on the side of the road. As he walked, he passed under a familiar underpass. The shadows here were cool, a reprieve from the oppressive heat of the day. Izuku muttered to himself, a habit he couldn't break, trying to salvage the notes in his head that had been burned from the page. Gigantification. Lady Nagant. Kamui Wood's binding lacquer strength. He didn't hear the manhole cover slide open behind him. He didn't hear the wet, slithering sound of something viscous dragging itself onto the pavement. A medium-sized invisibility cloak. The voice was wet, gurgling, and filled with malicious glee. Izuku turned, his green eyes widening, but it was too late. A wall of green sludge crashed into him. It tasted like sewage and rot. It forced its way into his nose, his mouth, coating his throat. Don't struggle, kid. It'll only hurt for a minute. Thanks for the help. You're a hero to me. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in Izuku's chest. He couldn't breathe. He clawed at the fluid, but his fingers passed through it like water. There was nothing to grab, nothing to fight. I'm dying. The thought was surprisingly calm, detached from the flailing of his body. I'm dying here, in a sewer tunnel, and nobody knows my name. I never became anything. I never saved anyone. His vision began to blur. Black spots danced at the edges of his sight. The villain's laughter vibrated through the slime, a sickening hum against Izuku's skin. Help me, someone! And then, the manhole cover exploded. It wasn't just removed, it was obliterated. A gust of wind pressure slammed into the tunnel, forcing the sludge villain to recoil. Do not fear, kid! The voice was booming, heroic, a sound that Izuku had listened to on YouTube loops for 10 years. Why? A figure emerged from the smoke, massive and radiating power. Because I am here. Texas smash. The wind pressure alone was enough to reshape the air in the tunnel. The sludge villain didn't stand a chance. He was blown apart, scattered like rain against the concrete walls. Izuku was released, gasping, air rushing into his starving lungs. He saw the silhouette, the golden hair, the white smile, before darkness took him. Enji Todoroki, the flame hero, Endeavor, was in a foul mood. He sat in the back of an unobtrusive black sedan, tinted windows rolling up the cityscape of Muzurifu. He was technically off-duty, traveling between a meeting with the Hero Public Safety Commission and his agency in Tokyo. But a hero of his caliber was never truly off-duty. His arms were crossed over his massive chest, his turquoise eyes scanning the streets with a predatory sharpness. He wasn't looking for villains, specifically. He was looking for incompetence. He was looking for flaws. He hated this city. It was All Might's city. Every billboard, every merchandise shop, every smiling face on the street was a testament to the blonde oaf who stood as the insurmountable wall in Endeavor's path. "Sir," his driver said, voice trembling slightly. "Traffic is stalled ahead. There seems to be a villain incident in the Tatooine shopping district." Endeavor scoffed, a puff of steam escaping his lips. "Local heroes can handle petty theft. Drive around." I can't, sir. The road is blocked by the crowd." Endeavor growled, the temperature in the car rising a few degrees. He looked out the window. Thick black smoke was billowing into the sky. Explosions. The distinct, popping sound of nitroglycerin. "Fire," Endeavor muttered. He opened the car door. "Stay here." "Sir? You're not in costume." "I am Endeavor," he said, stepping out onto the asphalt. He was wearing a dark blue suit that strained against his muscles, his flaming facial hair temporarily extinguished to maintain a low profile, leaving him looking like a severe, scar-faced businessman. But his presence was unmistakable. He walked through the crowd. He didn't push. People simply parted around him, an instinctual reaction to the sheer intensity of his aura. He reached the police tape and stopped, his eyes narrowing. It was a mess. The sludge villain, the one All Might had reportedly chased earlier that morning, had a hostage. A boy with ash-blonde hair was struggling, firing off explosions that only served to ignite the surrounding buildings. And the heroes? They were useless. Death Arms was shouting about not having the right quirk. Kamui Woods was complaining about the fire. Empty Lady was worried about street width. Pathetic, Endeavor thought, his lip curling in disgust. They wait for the perfect conditions. They wait for a matchup. A true hero forces the conditions to yield. He was about to step in, to incinerate the sludge with a precise flash-fire injection that would bypass the hostage, when movement caught his eye. The yellow police tape lifted. A boy ran out. Endeavor paused. The boy was small, scrawny, wearing a black middle school uniform. He had no support gear. He wasn't radiating any quirk energy. He looked terrified. His legs were flailing. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. A civilian? No, a suicide attempt? Deku! The hostage screamed. Endeavor watched, entranced by the sheer illogical nature of the scene. The boy, Deku, didn't have a plan. He threw his backpack. It was a clumsy, desperate throw, but the corner of the bag struck the villain's eye. The sludge recoiled. The boy clawed at the slime. He was screaming, crying, snot running down his face. It was pathetic. It was weak, but he was the only one moving. "Why are you running?" the hostage yelled. "My legs moved on their own." The boy screamed back, his voice raw. "I couldn't just watch you die." Something sparked in Endeavor's chest. Not sympathy. Enji Todoroki did not possess sympathy. It was recognition. He saw a madness there. The boy was powerless, painfully so. He was weak. But he had overridden the most basic human instinct, self-preservation. He had looked at death, felt the fear, and charged forward anyway because the objective, save the target, overrode the fear. He's not brave, Endeavor analyzed cold-heartedly. He's broken. He has no regard for his own life. He is a fanatic. And then, the wind came. All Might appeared, blood coughing from his mouth, and smashed the villain apart, changing the weather in the process. The crowd cheered. The other heroes rushed to praise the hostage for his powerful quirk, and scold the green-haired boy for his recklessness. Endeavor watched from the shadows of an alleyway. He watched the heroes berate the green boy. "You could have gotten yourself killed! That was reckless! You're quirkless, stay back!" Endeavor's eyes narrowed. Quirkless. He looked at the boy. Shoulders slumped, accepting the verbal beating, apologizing profusely. He looked like a victim, but Endeavor replayed the scene in his mind. The speed at which the boy had moved. The trajectory of the backpack. The immediate target prioritization, the eyes, the mouth. It was unrefined, sloppy, and desperate. But it was action. While the pros stood around calculating risks, the quirkless boy had engaged the enemy. Quirkless, Endeavor thought again. A blank slate. No bad habits formed by reliance on a crutch. A vessel filled only with desperate ambition. He turned and walked back toward his car, the gears in his mind turning with the heat of a furnace. He had spent 20 years trying to surpass All Might with raw power. He had bred children to do it for him. Shoto was a masterpiece, yes, but Shoto was resistant. Shoto was soft. Shoto rejected the fire. But that boy in the green uniform looked like he would walk through hell barefoot if someone just pointed the way. Endeavor pulled out his phone. Get me the personal files on a student from Aldera Junior High. Green hair. Name likely Midoriya. The sun was setting, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange. Izuku walked home, feeling drained. The adrenaline had crashed, leaving him hollow. He had met All Might. He had been saved by him. He had asked the question that had burned in his soul for a decade. Can I be a hero without a quirk? And All Might. All Might had shown him the wound. He had told him the truth about the symbol of peace. And he had said no. Not at first. But then, Izuku touched his chest. He could still feel the phantom weight of All Might's hand on his shoulder. Young Midoriya. You too can be a hero. The words rang in his ears, louder than the traffic, louder than his own doubts. All Might had offered him his power. One for all. A torch passed down through generations. Meet me at Dagoba Municipal Beach Park tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. All Might had said. I will train you. You need a vessel capable of holding this power, or your limbs will explode. Izuku clenched his fist. He was going to do it. He was going to work harder than anyone. He was going to be the vessel. He turned the corner toward his apartment complex, a small smile finally touching his lips. For the first time in his life, the future wasn't a dark void. It was a path. A long, sleek black car was parked in front of the apartment building. The engine was idling, a low, powerful purr. Izuku slowed down, confused. This wasn't a rich neighborhood. Cars like that didn't park here. He tried to sidestep it, keeping his head down, hoping to avoid trouble. The rear window rolled down. A wave of heat hit Izuku's face, dry and intense, like opening an oven door. Midoriya Izuku. The voice was deep, gravelly, and commanded authority. It wasn't a question. It was a summons. Izuku froze. He turned slowly. Sitting in the back of the car was a man he recognized instantly. Even without the flames masking his face, the turquoise eyes and the red hair were iconic. The sheer bulk of the man took up most of the back seat. Endeavor? Izuku squeaked. The number 2 hero? The door clicked open. Get in. Izuku blinked. What? I do not like to repeat myself. Get in the car. Izuku's heart hammered against his ribs. Why is Endeavor here? Did I do something wrong? Is this about the sludge villain? Am I being arrested for vigilantism? Trembling, Izuku shuffled forward and slid into the leather seat. The interior was cool, climate-controlled, but the man beside him radiated so much heat that Izuku began to sweat instantly. The door closed, locking with a definitive thud. Driver, drive, Endeavor said. The car moved smoothly into traffic. Izuku sat with his backpack on his lap, hugging it like a shield. You sir? Where are we? I saw you today, Endeavor cut him off. He didn't look at Izuku. He stared straight ahead, his profile sharp as a knife. At the shopping district. With the sludge villain. Izuku flinched. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have interfered. The other heroes already scolded me, and I know I don't have a license, or a quirk, and silence. The word was not shouted, but it possessed such weight that Izuku's mouth snapped shut. Endeavor finally turned his head. His turquoise eyes bore into Izuku, dissecting him. The other heroes are fools. They scolded you for acting while they stood around waiting for someone else to solve the problem. They are cowards. Izuku's eyes widened. You ran in, Endeavor continued. You had no plan. You had no power. You were facing a villain that had incapacitated 2 pros and captured a student with a powerful quirk. By all logical metrics, you should have died. I know, Izuku whispered, and yet you moved. Endeavor leaned in slightly. Tell me, boy. Why? Izuku swallowed hard. He thought about All Might. He thought about the fear in Bakugo's eyes. My legs, they just moved on their own. He looked like he was asking for help. Endeavor studied him for a long, uncomfortable moment. Madness, he declared. It is a suicidal altruism. A defect in the survival instinct. Izuku shrank back. But, Endeavor added, it is the only thing that cannot be taught. The hero shifted, turning his full body toward Izuku. I looked into your file. Quirkless. A statistical rarity in this generation. You have been bullied. Ostracized. Told you are worthless. Izuku looked down at his hands. Yes, sir, and despite that, you still threw yourself at a villain to save the very boy who bullies you. Endeavor's voice dropped an octave. You are hungry, Midoriya. You are starving for a chance to prove your existence matters. Izuku looked up, tears pricking the corners of his eyes. It was a harsh way to put it, but it was true. What do you want with me? I want to make a wager, Endeavor said. I am the number 2 hero. I have held that position for 20 years. I have reached the peak of what hard work and a powerful quirk can achieve. But there is a wall I cannot climb. He didn't need to say the name. All Might. I have children, Endeavor said, his voice hardening. One of them. Shoto. He was born with everything. The perfect quirk. The perfect potential. But he lacks the drive. He is spoiled by his own talent. He believes power is a burden. Endeavor gestured a massive hand toward Izuku. But you? You have nothing. You are a vessel of pure desperation. If I took you, if I applied my training methods, my resources, my tactical knowledge to a blank slate like you. I wonder what? If a quirkless soldier, forged in hell, could surpass the natural talents of this world. Izuku sat stunned. Endeavor wants to train me? It was insane. The number 2 hero was offering to mentor him. A day ago, this would have been the greatest moment of his life. But now, Izuku hesitated. Sir, I have a plan. For you. A plan? Endeavor scoffed. What plan? To study hard? To hope the written exam carries you? The UA entrance exam includes a practical combat section. Without a quirk, and with your current physique, Endeavor poked Izuku's bicep, his fingers sinking into the soft flesh. You will fail. You will be crushed. I'm going to train. Izuku protested. I'm starting tomorrow. At the beach park, Endeavor raised an eyebrow. Jogging in the sand? Lifting trash? That is amateur work. That is maintenance, not reconstruction. Endeavor leaned closer, the heat intensifying. Listen to me, Midoriya. The world of heroes is not the comic books you read. It is violent. It is painful. To stand at the top, you must destroy your body and rebuild it harder than stone. You need diet plans. You need martial arts that focus on incapacitation. You need pain tolerance training. You need to learn how to analyze a villain's weakness in a microsecond and exploit it without hesitation. He pulled a card from his pocket. It was black, with a flame embossed in gold. I am offering you a place at the Todoroki estate. Every day after school. I will personally oversee your conditioning. I will teach you how to fight so that even without a quirk, you can break a man's bones before he blinks. Izuku stared at the card. Why? Izuku asked again, his voice small. Because I want to prove a point, Endeavor said coldly. I want to prove that my method, the path of relentless, agonizing effort, is superior to the genetic lottery. I want to build a hero who doesn't just smile and wave, but who conquers the villain. I want to see if I can turn a pebble into a diamond by simply applying enough pressure. Izuku's mind raced. All Might offered me one for all, but he said I need a body capable of holding it. If I try to train myself, or even if All Might helps me, will it be enough? All Might is the greatest hero, but is he the greatest teacher? He remembered All Might's skeletal form. He remembered the blood. He's dying. He's running out of time. I can't waste his time being weak. If he accepted Endeavor's training, he would get strong. Fast. He could prepare his body for one for all much faster than moving fridges on a beach. But Endeavor was scary. He was intense. And he clearly had ulterior motives. Does it matter? A darker voice whispered in Izuku's head. You need the power. You need to be ready. If you take one for all and your limbs explode, you've failed All Might. You need to be the perfect vessel. Can I? Izuku started, his voice trembling. Can I still go to the beach in the mornings? Endeavor narrowed his eyes. Why? I want to clean it up. As community service. To build character. It wasn't a lie exactly, Endeavor snorted. Do what you want with your mornings. But from 4 p.m. until you vomit or pass out, you belong to me. Izuku looked at the card. He looked at the scarred, intense face of the flame hero. This wasn't the kindly mentorship of the symbol of peace. This was a deal with a demon of fire, but Izuku remembered the sludge. He remembered the feeling of helplessness. He remembered Bakugo's eyes. He reached out and took the card. The paper was warm. I'll do it, Izuku said, his eyes hardening. I'll do whatever it takes, Endeavor grinned. It was not a nice smile. It was a baring of teeth. Good. We start now. Wait, now? But my mom, text her. Tell her you are studying at the library. You will not be home for dinner. The Todoroki estate was less of a home and more of a fortress. Traditional Japanese architecture clashed with cold, modern security systems. The hallways were long, silent, and immaculate. Izuku walked 3 paces behind Endeavor, clutching his backpack straps. He felt like an intruder. They passed a room with the door slightly ajar. Inside, Izuku saw a boy about his age with hair split down the middle, white and red. He was sitting on the floor, staring at the wall. The boy looked up as they passed. His eyes were heterochromatic, gray and blue. And they were cold. Freezing cold. He looked at Endeavor with pure hatred. Then his gaze slid to Izuku. The hatred didn't vanish. It just shifted into confusion and disgust. Shoto, Endeavor acknowledged without stopping. Training at 8 o'clock. The boy didn't answer. He just slid the door shut. Ignore him, Endeavor said. He is in a rebellious phase. He refuses to use his fire. He is wasting his potential. Izuku swallowed. The tension in this house was thick enough to choke on. Endeavor led him to a massive dojo at the back of the estate. It was polished wood, smelling of wax and sweat. There were training dummies, weights, and sparring gear lining the walls. Put your bag down, Endeavor commanded. Izuku did. Take off your jacket. Roll up your sleeves. Izuku complied, revealing his scrawny arms. Endeavor circled him, poking and prodding. Your posture is terrible. You hunch to protect your vital organs, a habit of a victim. Your muscles are non-existent. Your flexibility is average. He stopped in front of Izuku. This will be hell, Midoriya. I am not All Might. I will not save you if you fall. I will burn the weakness out of you until only the soldier remains. Do you understand? Izuku thought about the secret he now carried. The hare he had to eat, eventually. The legacy he had to uphold. Yes, sir! Izuku shouted. Good. Endeavor assumed a fighting stance. First lesson. Pain tolerance. Attack me. What? Attack me. With everything you have. Try to kill me? Izuku hesitated. But, a villain will not hesitate. Endeavor roared, and he lashed out. He didn't use his fire, just a palm thrust. It hit Izuku in the solar plexus. The air left Izuku's body instantly. He flew backward, sliding across the polished floor, gasping like a fish out of water. Pain exploded in his chest. Get up, Endeavor commanded. Izuku wheezed, clutching his chest. Tears streamed down his face. I said get up. Izuku forced his legs to move. He wobbled to his feet, still unable to breathe properly. Again, Endeavor said. Izuku ran at him. He swung a clumsy fist. Endeavor caught it, twisted his wrist, and swept his legs. Izuku hit the floor hard. Again. This continued for an hour. Izuku was bruised, battered, and barely conscious. He had thrown up once in a bucket Endeavor had kicked toward him. Pathetic, Endeavor said, looking down at Izuku, who was sprawled on the floor, his cheek pressed against the wood. Is this all the conviction you have? You want to be a hero? You want to save people? Endeavor crouched down. Listen to me. Fear creates hesitation. Hesitation creates death. You must learn to suppress the fear. You must turn your mind into a computer. Analyze the threat. Execute the solution. Ignore the pain. Izuku groaned, trying to push himself up. His arms shook violently. Why? Izuku gasped. Why me? Because you got up, Endeavor said simply, and Izuku was getting up. Slowly. Agonizingly. He locked his knees. He raised his fists. His nose was bleeding. One eye was swelling shut. I'm not done, Izuku rasped. Endeavor watched him. For a split second, the number 2 hero saw the image of All Might in the boy's battered stance. Not the power, but the spirit. The refusal to stay down, but Endeavor crushed that comparison. No. I will not make another All Might. I will make something sharper. Your form is garbage, Endeavor said, standing up. Tuck your chin. Rotate your hips. Power comes from the base, not the shoulders. He demonstrated a punch. It was crisp, violent, and perfect. Copy me. Izuku mimicked the motion. It was sloppy. Again. Lower. Izuku adjusted. Again. Faster. And so began the double life of Midoriya Izuku. By morning, he was the dreamer on the beach, hauling trash under the encouraging, sunny gaze of All Might, listening to speeches about justice and the heart of a hero. He learned to smile through the lifting. He learned about the responsibility of the symbol. By evening, he was the soldier in the dojo, his body breaking and reforming under the hateful, searing gaze of Endeavor. He learned to suppress the pain. He learned that a hero's job was not just to save, but to win. He learned to look at a room and see exit vectors, structural weak points, and kill zones. He didn't tell All Might about the bruises. He said he tripped. He said he was practicing sparring with a friend. He didn't tell Endeavor about the beach. He said he was doing extra cardio. Izuku was the bridge between two worlds, the spark caught between the sun and the fire. 2 weeks into the training, Izuku sat in the locker room of the Todoroki estate, changing out of his sweat-soaked gym clothes. He was covered in new scars, scrapes, and bruises that were turning yellow and green. The door opened. Shoto walked in. He was wearing his own training gear, looking pristine and untouched. The two boys stared at each other. You're still here, Shoto said. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. I'm still here, Izuku replied, pulling his shirt on. He winced as the fabric rubbed against a particularly bad bruise on his ribs. My father is using you, Shoto said coldly. He's trying to make a point. He thinks if he can make a quirkless nobody strong, he can prove that his training is the only thing that matters. He's trying to validate his abuse. Izuku paused. He looked at Shoto. He saw the burn scar over the boy's eye. He saw the deep resentment that went down to the bone. I know, Izuku said quietly. Shoto blinked, surprised. You know? I know he's using me. I know he doesn't care about me. I know I'm just an experiment to him. Izuku tied his shoes. But I'm using him too, Shoto frowned. What? Izuku stood up. He wasn't the trembling boy from 2 weeks ago. There was a new steel in his spine. A darkness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. I need to be strong, Izuku said. I have a goal. And I can't reach it the way I am now. If your father wants to use me as a weapon to prove a point, fine. I'll let him sharpen me. But I'm the one who decides where to aim. Izuku walked past Shoto toward the door. You're going to break, Shoto said to his back. He breaks everything he touches. Izuku stopped at the door. He touched the burn cream in his pocket, something Endeavor had thrown at him after a particularly grueling session involving heat resistance. Maybe, Izuku said. But I was already broken when I got here. At least now, the pieces are sharp. He walked out. Shoto stared at the empty doorway. For the first time, he didn't just feel annoyance toward the green-haired boy. He felt something else. Curiosity. 10 months later. The day of the entrance exam. The beach was clean. The morning sun glittered off the pristine sand of Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. The mounds of trash were gone, replaced by a horizon of sparkling ocean. All Might stood atop the sea wall, in his buff form, beaming with pride. Oh my! Oh my goodness! All Might laughed, his booming voice startling the seagulls. Young Midoriya! You have done it! You have cleaned the entire beach. And with time to spare, Izuku stood on top of a pile of tires, panting. He was shirtless. But this was not the Izuku from the canon timeline. That Izuku was ripped, yes. But this Izuku was dense. His muscles were corded, compact, and scarred. His skin was tanned from months in the sun, and toughened by months of impacts. He stood with a posture that was almost military, shoulders back, chin tucked, weight distributed evenly on the balls of his feet. He didn't just look strong. He looked dangerous. I did it, All Might, Izuku said. He didn't cry. He smiled, but it was a tight, controlled expression. You certainly did. All Might hopped down. I must say, your progress has been terrifyingly efficient. I expected you to struggle more with the heavier items, but your technique, it's very refined. I watched videos, Izuku lied smoothly. All Might plucked a strand of golden hair from his head. Well then. There is no time to waste. The exam is in 3 hours. You have proven yourself a worthy vessel. Inherit my power, young Midoriya. He held out the hair. Eat this. Izuku took the hair. He didn't hesitate. He didn't question the grossness of it. He viewed it as a tactical necessity. Fuel, he thought. He swallowed the hair. Now, All Might said, shrinking back into his skeletal form, coughing slightly. You will likely feel the power manifest in a few hours. Just in time for the practical exam. Remember, clench your buttocks and yell smash inside your heart. Understood, Izuku said. I will see you at the school, All Might said, giving him a thumbs up. I have some faculty business to attend to. Good luck, Izuku. You are going to be a fantastic hero. Thank you, All Might. Izuku bowed deeply. He waited until All Might was gone. Then, he pulled out his phone. He had a text message. Endeavor, don't embarrass me. Izuku stared at the screen. He felt the hair sitting in his stomach, a dormant son waiting to be born. He felt the phantom pains of Endeavor's sparring sessions in his shins and forearms. He looked at his reflection in a piece of polished glass from the trash pile. The eyes staring back were green, but the light behind them had changed. They weren't just the eyes of a dreamer anymore. They were the eyes of a survivor. I won't, Izuku whispered to the phone. He picked up his yellow backpack. He began the walk to Yue High School. The human body is a machine. It is a collection of levers, pulleys, and pumps. Like any machine, it has tolerance limits. Like any machine, it can be overclocked. And like any machine, if you run it in the red for too long without maintenance, it will break. Midoriya Izuku learned this not from a biology textbook, but from the smell of his own burning sweat. It had been 4 hours since he left the golden warmth of All Might's presence at Dagoba Beach. 4 hours since he had swallowed the hair that supposedly held the power of the gods. He didn't feel like a god. He felt like a side of beef being tenderized by a jackhammer. Get up. The command was low, barely a rumble in the throat of the man standing over him, but it vibrated through the floorboards of the dojo. Izuku lay on his stomach, his cheek pressed against the cool, polished wood. His lungs were burning, a sensation that had become his constant companion over the last 10 months. He tried to push himself up, but his arms trembled so violently that his elbows gave out, dropping him back down with a wet slap. I said, get up. Endeavor didn't shout. He didn't need to. The temperature in the room spiked. The air grew dry, sucking the moisture from Izuku's eyes. I'm trying, Izuku rasped. Trying is a narrative for the weak, Endeavor said, walking a slow circle around the boy. Villains do not care if you are trying. Natural disasters do not pause because you are fatigued. You are either standing or you are dead. Endeavor stopped near Izuku's head. He nudged Izuku's shoulder with the toe of his boot. It wasn't a kick, but the sheer disrespect of the motion ignited something in Izuku's gut. You have 10 seconds, Midoriya. If you are not in a fighting stance, you sleep outside the gate tonight. Izuku gritted his teeth. Think, don't feel. Analyze. His triceps were shot. His legs were jelly. He couldn't lift his weight using standard mechanics. He had to cheat. Izuku rolled onto his back, using the momentum to swing his legs up, kicking them down to leverage his torso off the ground, a kip up. It was sloppy, and he stumbled upon landing, but he locked his knees. He raised his fists. They felt like lead weights. Good, Endeavor said, his turquoise eyes narrowing. You used momentum to compensate for muscle failure. Efficient. The flame hero stood 10 feet away, arms crossed, the fire of his beard flickering with his breathing. He looked like a statue carved from volcanic rock. Do you know why I chose you, Midoriya? Izuku swayed slightly, fighting to keep his eyes focused. Because I'm crazy? Because you are empty, Endeavor corrected. All Might looks for hearts of gold. He looks for morality. I look for capacity. You were a vessel filled with nothing but self-loathing and a suicidal drive to be useful. That is a dangerous combination. But it is useful. Endeavor uncrossed his arms. He stepped into a stance, wide, grounded, immovable. For 10 months, we have built your body. You are no longer a twig. You are wire and iron. But you are still fighting like a civilian. You flinch when I strike. You hesitate when you see an opening because you are afraid of hurting me. Endeavor's hand ignited. A ball of fire, orange and furious, danced in his palm. Today, we erase the hesitation. Today, I teach you the Hellflame Doctrine. Izuku swallowed dryly. The what? The philosophy that keeps me at number 2, breathing down the neck of a god, Endeavor growled. It is simple, total annihilation of the threat. You do not incapacitate. You do not negotiate. You apply overwhelming force to the weakest point until the target ceases to be a threat. You burn through the obstacle. He threw the fireball. It wasn't a full-power prominence burn, but it was fast. Izuku barely had time to yelp before he dove to the right. The heat singed his eyebrows. The fireball struck the far wall, which was reinforced with heat-resistant plating, but the impact still rattled the room. Dodge forward. Endeavor roared. Retreat is death. Into the fire, Midoriya. Izuku scrambled up. But I'll get burned. Then burn. Endeavor charged. He moved with terrifying speed for a man of his size. Pain is information. It tells you where you are damaged. It does not tell you to stop. He swung a massive fist. Izuku ducked, feeling the wind pressure ruffle his hair. He saw an opening. Endeavor's ribs were exposed. Hit him. The thought was instant. But then, the hesitation. It's the number 2 hero. If I hit him, I might. Endeavor's knee slammed into Izuku's gut. Izuku retched, doubling over. You hesitated, Endeavor hissed, grabbing Izuku by the back of his neck and hauling him up. You saw the ribcage. You calculated the strike. But you didn't take it. Why? Izuku gasped for air. I didn't want to disrespect. Disrespect? Endeavor threw him aside like a ragdoll. Izuku rolled, hitting the wall. In a fight, mercy is the greatest insult. If you do not strike to break me, you are telling me I am not worth your full effort. You are telling the villain you do not care enough about the victim to end the fight quickly. Endeavor loomed over him, his shadow stretching long and jagged. Listen to me, boy. You have no quirk. You have no claws, no fire, no super strength. You are a human fighting monsters. If you fight fair, you die. If you fight nice, people die. You must become a monster yourself. You must be colder than ice and hotter than fire. You must look at a human being and see only targets. Throat. Eyes. Solar plexus. Knees. Endeavor pointed a flaming finger at Izuku's face. Get up. And this time, if you see an opening, you take it. If you break your hand on my ribs, so be it. If you break my ribs, even better. Izuku dragged himself up the wall. His vision swam. He's right. The thought was chilling. It went against everything All Might radiated. All Might was about saving people with a smile. Endeavor was about destroying the threat with a scowl. But Izuku remembered the sludge villain. He remembered the feeling of helplessness. If I had gone for the eyes immediately, if I had been ruthless, maybe All Might wouldn't have had to push himself. Izuku took a breath. He clenched his fists. He pushed down the pain, He pushed down the fear. He imagined a switch in his brain, labeled empathy, and he turned it off. He looked at Endeavor. He didn't see a hero. He saw a target. Mass, approximate 118 kilograms. Center of gravity high. Weakness, arrogance. Izuku's eyes went dead. Come, Endeavor commanded. Izuku moved. The dinner table at the Todoroki estate was a study in silence. It was a long, traditional low table. The food was exquisite: grilled fish, miso soup, pickled vegetables, precise nutritional balances calculated by Endeavor's personal dietitians. But the atmosphere made the food taste like ash. Izuku sat at the far end, opposite Endeavor. He was showered, wearing a clean change of clothes he kept at the estate, but his face was a map of bruises. His left eye was swollen shut. There was a bandage on his chin. To his right sat Fuyumi, Endeavor's daughter. She ate with small, nervous movements, her eyes darting between her father and the battered boy. To his left was an empty space. And then Natsuo, who was eating quickly, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. And across from Izuku, ignoring his father entirely, was Shoto. Midoriya, Endeavor spoke. Everyone but Shoto flinched. Yes, sir, Izuku said, putting down his chopsticks. Your reaction time improved by 0.4 seconds in the last bout. However, you are still favoring your right side. A smart villain will cripple your left leg and finish you. I'll correct it, Izuku said monotonously. Fuyumi cleared her throat gently. Father? Isn't the entrance exam tomorrow? Maybe Izuku-kun should rest? He looks prepared, Endeavor cut her off. He didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on Izuku. Rest is for after victory. Tonight, he reviews tactical footage of the last 3 years of UA exams. He needs to understand the enemy AI patterns. I'm fine, Fuyumi-san, Izuku said softly. Thank you for the concern. Shoto slammed his chopsticks down. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet room. You're not fine, Shoto said, his voice cold. He looked at Izuku with a mixture of pity and disdain. Look at yourself. You look like a corpse. Shoto, Endeavor warned, the temperature rising. He's brainwashing you, Shoto continued, staring directly at Izuku. He's turning you into a drone. Do you even know why you want to be a hero anymore? Or are you just afraid of what he'll do if you stop? Izuku met Shoto's heterochromatic gaze. 10 months ago, he would have stuttered. He would have looked away. But 10 months with Enji Todoroki had burned the stutter out of him. I want to save people, Izuku said calmly. By becoming him? Shoto gestured to his father. By becoming a man who hurts everyone around him for power? By becoming capable, Izuku replied. Idealism without power is just a suicide note, Todoroki-kun. I learned that the hard way. Shoto narrowed his eyes. You sound exactly like him. It's disgusting. That is enough. Endeavor roared. His beard flared, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Shoto, if you have energy to argue, you have energy to train. Meet me in the dojo in 20 minutes. I'm not training with you, Shoto stood up. I'm going to sleep. I'll pass the exam my own way. Without your fire. He stormed out of the room. The sliding door slammed shut behind him. Endeavor stared at the door, his face a mask of simmering rage. Then, he looked back at Izuku. Finish your protein, Endeavor ordered. Then go to the media room. Izuku picked up his chopsticks. His hand was shaking, but he forced the food into his mouth. He didn't look at Fuyumi's sad eyes. He focused on the mission. Eat. Digest. Fuel. Fight. Later that night, the estate was dark. The silence was heavy, oppressive. Izuku walked down the hallway toward the guest room he sometimes used when training went too late. His body screamed for sleep, but his mind was wired. He passed the courtyard. The moon was high, illuminating the manicured garden. Sitting on the edge of the Engawa veranda was Shoto. He was looking up at the moon, his expression unreadable. Izuku hesitated, then stopped. You're going to catch a cold. Shoto didn't look back. I regulate my own temperature. Izuku sighed and leaned against the wooden pillar. You hate me. I don't hate you, Shoto said, finally turning to look at him. I pity you. You walked into this house willingly. You let him put that collar on you. It's not a collar, Izuku said. It's a trade. What could you possibly get that's worth this? Shoto gestured to Izuku's battered face. He beats you. He dehumanizes you. He treats you like a science experiment. He treats me like a soldier, Izuku corrected. And what do I get? I get a chance. Izuku stepped out of the shadows, into the moonlight. You were born with a Porsche engine, Todoroki-kun. You have ice and fire. You were born at the finish line. I was born, without wheels, without an engine. I was born broken. Shoto watched him, silent. For 14 years, the world told me to die, Izuku said, his voice void of self-pity, just stating facts. They told me to jump off a roof. Even the person I admired most told me to be realistic, until he showed up. Izuku looked toward the master bedroom where Endeavor slept. He didn't offer me comfort. He didn't tell me I was special. He told me I was weak. But he gave me a way to be strong. He gave me a blueprint. If the price for that is pain, if the price is becoming a monster, then I'll pay it. Shoto stood up. He walked over to Izuku, stopping just a foot away. The height difference was negligible, but Shoto felt miles away. He's going to destroy you, Shoto said quietly. He's trying to make a weapon that can beat All Might. He failed with my brothers. He failed with me. Do you really think you can succeed where his own blood failed? I don't have to beat All Might, Izuku whispered. He thought of the hair sitting in his stomach, the dormant power of one for all. I just have to be strong enough to carry his legacy. Shoto frowned, not understanding the subtext. You're a fool, Midoriya. Tomorrow, in the exam, don't expect me to be friendly. If we're in the same battle center, I'll crush you. I'll show him that his experiment is a waste of time. Good, Izuku said, his eyes flashing with a hint of Endeavor's intensity. Do it. Because if you hold back, I'll tear you apart. Shoto looked taken aback for a moment. Then, he scoffed, turned, and walked away into the darkness. We'll see. The next morning 4 a.m., Izuku woke up before his alarm. His body was stiff, but his mind was clear. He could feel it. A hum. A low, vibrating frequency deep in his gut. One for all. It had digested. The power was there. It wasn't a pool of water like he imagined. It felt like a trapped storm, crackling against the inside of his skin. It was terrifying. He got dressed in his training gear and went to the dojo. He needed to move. He needed to test this feeling before the exam. He entered the dojo, expecting it to be empty. Endeavor was there. The flame hero was meditating in the center of the room, surrounded by a ring of candles. He opened his eyes as Izuku entered. You're awake early, Endeavor said. I couldn't sleep. Endeavor stood up. Nerves. Understandable. But useless. He walked over to the weapon rack and picked up a wooden bow staff. He tossed a second one to Izuku. One last spar, Endeavor said. To wake up the nervous system. No quirks. Just technique? Izuku caught the staff. His hands were vibrating. The power inside him was reacting to his adrenaline. It wanted out. Sir, Izuku hesitated. I feel different today. Good. Use it. Endeavor attacked. The wood cracked against wood. Endeavor was fast, his strikes heavy and precise. He aimed for Izuku's shoulders, his knees, his wrists. Izuku parried. Clack. Clack. Thud. He was keeping up. For the first time in 10 months, he wasn't just surviving, he was reading the flow. He saw the twitch of Endeavor's pectoral muscle before the swing. He saw the shift in weight, dodge left. Duck. Counter-strike to the ribs. Izuku swung the staff. It connected with Endeavor's side. A solid hit. Endeavor didn't flinch. He grinned. A savage, terrifying grin. Finally! Endeavor roared. You have bite. More. Come at me with everything. Endeavor discarded his staff. He ignited his fists. Forget the no quirks rule. I want to see if you can survive the heat. Pressure, Midoriya. Give me pressure. The room exploded into movement. Endeavor unleashed a barrage of low-level fire punches. Izuku danced through the flames, his skin prickling with heat. He was panting, sweating, his mind racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I can see him. I can see the path. But he was too slow. His muscles, honed as they were, couldn't match the speed of a top-tier pro hero using his quirk. Endeavor cornered him. A massive flaming hand came down. Die! Endeavor shouted, his standard training mantra to induce panic. Panic flared. But so did something else. The storm in Izuku's gut surged. It rushed through his veins like molten lead. It flooded his right arm. It was too much. It was infinite. It was everything. Smash! Izuku didn't think. He threw a punch to intercept Endeavor's hand. But he didn't know how to regulate it. He didn't know the percentage. He opened the floodgates. His fist met Endeavor's palm. Boom! The sound wasn't a slap of meat on meat. It was the sound of a cannon firing in a library. A shockwave exploded outward from the point of impact. The floorboards beneath them splintered and flew into the air. The candles were blown out instantly. The windows of the dojo rattled in their frames. Endeavor was knocked backward. His boots skidded across the floor, carving deep gouges into the wood. He slid 5 meters before digging his heels in and coming to a stop, his eyes wide with shock. Izuku stood frozen. His right arm hung limp at his side. His sleeve was shredded. His skin was purple, bruised black and blue instantly. His middle finger was bent at a sickening angle. Pain, white and blinding, shot up his arm and exploded in his brain. Ah! Izuku fell to his knees, clutching his broken hand. The scream tore from his throat, raw and agonizing. Endeavor stared. He stared at the destruction. He stared at the boy. He looked at his own hand. It was stinging. He had actually felt that. The force, it was like being hit by a truck. No, it was like being hit by him. Endeavor walked slowly toward the sobbing boy. The air in the room was swirling with dust and the smell of ozone. Midoriya, Endeavor said, his voice strangely quiet. Izuku looked up, tears streaming down his face, teeth gritted against the agony. I'm sorry. I didn't mean, it just happened. Endeavor crouched down. He took Izuku's injured arm. His touch was surprisingly gentle, clinical. He examined the broken finger. You have a quirk, Endeavor stated. It wasn't a question. Izuku froze. The pain receded for a split second under the weight of terror. He knows. He knows about All Might. Izuku stammered. It just manifested. Just now. I swear. I didn't know. Endeavor was silent. He looked at the injury. Then he looked at Izuku's terrified eyes. A late bloomer, Endeavor whispered. Triggered by extreme physical stress and the threat of death. It is rare, but not unheard of. Izuku blinked. He thinks it's natural? Endeavor stood up. He began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, low in his chest, and grew into a full-blown, triumphant roar. The fire on his face flared up, brighter than it had been in years. I knew it! Endeavor shouted at the ceiling. I knew there was something in you. The madness. The drive. The body simply needed to catch up to the will. He looked down at Izuku with a gaze that was bordering on fanatical. Do you understand what this is, Midoriya? This is evolution. We pushed your body to the breaking point, and it responded. It created power to survive my training. Endeavor paced the room, manic energy radiating off him. But it is raw. Volatile. Look at your arm. The vessel is too weak for the output. It is a cannon made of glass. He turned back to Izuku. Can you move the finger? And no, Izuku winced. Good. Pain is a teacher. Endeavor grabbed a roll of medical tape from a nearby kit. He knelt down and began to splint the finger with ruthless efficiency. Listen to me. You are going to the exam. You will not use this power. What? If you use it, you will shatter your arm. You will be useless for the rest of the test. You will rely on your martial arts. You will rely on the Hellflame Doctrine. You will use this power only if you are staring death in the face. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Endeavor finished taping the finger. He grabbed Izuku's face, forcing him to look him in the eye. You are no longer a quirkless experiment, Midoriya. You are my greatest creation. You possess a power that destroys the user, just like my fire threatens to overheat me. We are the same, Endeavor grinned. We will tame this power. We will break it until it obeys. And when we do, all might will be nothing but a memory. He pulled Izuku to his feet. Go. Get ice. Take painkillers. The car leaves in 1 hour. Izuku stumbled out of the dojo, cradling his throbbing hand. His heart was pounding in his ears. He had survived the training. He had inherited one for all. But he had complicated everything. Endeavor didn't just see him as a student anymore. He saw him as validation. He saw him as the ultimate weapon, forged by his own hands. Izuku looked at his broken finger. The purple skin pulsed. I have to control this, Izuku thought. Not for Endeavor. Not to beat All Might. But because if I don't, this fire will consume me. He walked into the light of the dawn, the shadow of the flame hero stretching long behind him, ready to cast a pall over UA High. The entrance exam was about to begin. And Midoriya Izuku was bringing a gun to a knife fight. A gun he didn't know how to aim, loaded with a bullet that might blow up in his face. Plus ultra, he thought ironically. No, Endeavor's voice corrected in his mind. Maximum firepower. The gates of UA High stood like the pearly gates of a mechanical heaven, towering and golden under the February sky. To thousands of applicants, they represented hope, celebrity, and the future. They were the threshold to a dream. To Midoriya Izuku, they were just another checkpoint. He stood at the base of the long, paved pathway leading to the main campus. The air was crisp, biting at his exposed skin, but he didn't feel the cold. He was burning. A low-level fever, induced by painkillers and the residual inflammation of his muscles, hummed beneath his skin. His right hand was wrapped tightly in compression tape, the middle finger splinted and hidden inside a black fingerless glove. He wore the standard black Kakurin of Aldera Junior High, but it fit differently now. 10 months ago, the fabric had hung off his wire-framed shoulders like a tarp over a stick. Now, it strained against the dense, corded muscle of his back and arms. He didn't carry himself with the slump of a victim anymore. He stood with the rigid, kinetic stillness of a predator waiting for a signal. Out of my way, Deku. The voice was a growl, familiar and laced with nitroglycerin. Izuku didn't flinch. He didn't jump. He didn't squeak. He simply halted his stride and shifted his weight to his left foot, allowing Bakugo Katsuki to stomp past him. Bakugo paused. The lack of reaction was wrong. It was a glitch in the matrix of their relationship. The blonde turned, his red eyes narrowing into slits. Don't ignore me, you damn nerd, Bakugo hissed. You look different. Izuku slowly turned his head. His green eyes were dull, focused on something 1,000 miles away. He looked at Bakugo, but he didn't see Kaken, the childhood friend, or Bakugo, the bully. He saw a variable, Bakugo Katsuki. Quirk, explosion. High mobility. High damage output. Temperamental. Vulnerability, pride. Approach, do not engage. Focus on the objective. I'm focusing, Izuku said. His voice was raspy, unused to casual conversation. Bakugo bristled. Focusing? On what? Failing? You think just because you stopped being a twig you can stand in the same ring as me? You're quirkless, is that all? Izuku asked calmly. Bakugo's jaw dropped slightly. The dismissal was absolute. Before he could scream, generate an explosion, or grab Izuku by the collar, Izuku had already turned back toward the gate and resumed walking. Don't waste energy, Endeavor's voice echoed in Izuku's skull. Anger without action is just a leak in the fuel tank. Izuku walked alone. He noticed a girl with brown hair and a round face, Uraraka Ochako, though he didn't know her name yet, trip over her own feet a few yards ahead. In another life, he might have rushed to catch her, flustered and blushing. Today, he analyzed the trajectory. She will catch herself. Low gravity quirk potential? No, she hasn't activated it. She's simply clumsy. He sidestepped her flailing form without breaking stride, leaving her to regain her balance on her own. He had a mission. Kindness was a luxury he couldn't afford until the mission was complete. The written exam was a formality. Endeavor had drilled the curriculum into Izuku with the same ruthlessness he applied to martial arts. Izuku didn't just know the answers. He knew the reasoning, the history, and the counter-arguments. He wrote with mechanical precision, his pencil scratching aggressively against the paper. Question 4. Hero Law, Section 12 regarding vigilantism. Answer. Intent is secondary to licensing. Unauthorized use of quirks is a felony, regardless of outcome. Exception. Self-defense under imminent threat of death, per the revised Stain statutes. He finished 20 minutes early. He sat in silence, staring at the clock, regulating his breathing. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. Then came the orientation. The auditorium was cavernous, filled with the murmurs of hundreds of students. Izuku sat near the back, his notebook open. But it wasn't his old hero analysis for the future. It was a plain black tactical journal. Everybody say hey. Present Mick's voice boomed through the speakers, amplified to ear-splitting levels. Silence. Tough crowd. Mike shrugged. As the voice hero began to explain the rules of the practical exam, 3 types of villain bots, point values, city zones, Izuku's pen flew across the page. He wasn't drawing the robots. He was drawing the map. Urban environment. Lots of cover. Verticality is key. The robots will likely be ground-based. Weaknesses, joints, sensors, power supplies. 1-pointer, fast, lightly armored. 2-pointer, balanced. 3-pointer, heavy, slow. Excuse me. May I ask a question? A tall boy with glasses and blue hair stood up, his hand raised like a knife. A spotlight hit him. There is a 4th robot type listed on the handout. The boy shouted, pointing accusingly. If this is a printing error, you should be ashamed. We are here to be molded into exemplary heroes. He then spun around and pointed a finger directly at Izuku. And you! With the curly hair, Izuku didn't look up from his notebook. He was calculating the PSI required to rupture a hydraulic line. You've been muttering this whole time, the boy accused. It's distracting. If you're here on a sightseeing trip, you should leave immediately. The auditorium went quiet. Snickers rippled through the crowd. Izuku stopped writing. He slowly capped his pen. The sound was a sharp click in the silence. He stood up. He didn't look embarrassed. He looked annoyed. I am analyzing the threat, Izuku said, his voice projecting clearly without shouting, a trick of diaphragm control Endeavor had taught him. I am calculating the structural weaknesses of the automated units based on standard robotics manufacturing. If my preparation distracts you, that suggests your focus is fragile. The boy with glasses, Ida Tenya, stiffened, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Furthermore, Izuku continued, his eyes cold, we are competitors. If I am distracting you, that is a tactical advantage for me. Deal with it. He sat back down. The silence in the room changed. It wasn't mocking anymore. It was heavy. Even present Mike raised an eyebrow behind his shades. Okay. Okay. Mike yelled, breaking the tension. Examinee 7111 makes a very intense point. But let's keep it civil. The 4th robot is a 0-pointer. An obstacle. Think of it like a thwomp from Mario. There's no points in beating it, so run away. Run away, Izuku thought. Avoidance. Efficiency. He checked his taped finger. The pain was a dull throb, a reminder of the power sleeping in his gut. I won't use it, he promised himself. Not unless I have to. Battle Center B. The mock city was massive. Skyscrapers of concrete and glass rose into the sky, creating a labyrinth of alleyways and main streets. Izuku stood at the front of the crowd gathered before the massive gates. He was stretching his hamstrings. He wore a plain teal tracksuit that had seen better days. It was patched at the knees and elbows, battle scars from the Todoroki dojo. The other students were nervous. Some were shaking. Some were boasting. I'm gonna wreck these things. Do you think they have lasers? Izuku tuned them out. He was scanning the skyline. Choke points. High ground. The robots will spawn from the interior and move outward. The highest density of targets will be in the center, but that's where the competition will be. The most efficient route is a spiral, picking off stragglers on the perimeter before cutting inward. He saw the girl, Uraraka, standing nearby. She looked like she was about to vomit. She noticed him and took a step forward, perhaps to wish him luck, or to ask about his outburst in the auditorium. Izuku turned his back on her. He assumed a sprinter's stance. And start. Present mixed voice screamed from a tower. The other students froze. They looked confused. Start? Where's the countdown? Izuku was already moving. He exploded off the line. His first step cracked the pavement. He didn't run like a track star. He ran like a soldier under fire, low to the ground, head on a swivel, arms pumping violently. What are you waiting for? Mike yelled. There are no countdowns in real battles. Run! Run! The die is cast. By the time the other students processed the command, Izuku was already vanishing into the city. The scorched earth. Izuku turned a corner into a wide avenue. A one-pointer, a wheeled drone with a single red eye, rolled out from an alleyway, locking onto him. Target acquired. It sped up, aiming to ram him. Izuku didn't slow down. He didn't activate a quirk. He analyzed. Speed, 30 kilometers per hour. Armor, light aluminum alloy. Weakness, the central sensor cluster. As the robot lunged, Izuku slid. It was a baseball slide, calibrated perfectly. He went under the robot's chassis. As he passed beneath it, he grabbed a loose metal pipe he had spotted in the gutter, left debris for a reason, and jammed it upward into the exposed wheel axle. Crunch. The robot's momentum worked against it. The pipe acted as a lever, shattering the axle. The robot flipped, crashing into the asphalt with a shower of sparks. Izuku rolled to his feet, spun around, and delivered a devastating axe kick to the robot's sensor eye. Smash! The glass shattered. The lights went out. 1 point, Izuku muttered. He didn't stop to celebrate. He kept running. Endeavor Doctrine Rule 1, maintain momentum. He encountered a 2-pointer, a scorpion-like machine. It raised a mechanical tail to strike. Izuku used the environment. He wall ran up the side of a building, 3 steps, defying gravity with sheer core strength, and backflipped off the wall, landing on the robot's head. He grabbed the sensory antennae. If I pull here, the wiring harness snaps. He pulled. He roared. His muscles bulged, veins popping against his skin. With a sickening snap, the metal gave way. The robot powered down. 3 points. He was a blur of violence. He wasn't using flashes of fire or explosions. He was using physics. He was using leverage. He was using the brutal, bone-breaking martial arts Endeavor had beaten into him. He found a 3-pointer. A massive tank of a robot. It fired a rubber bullet at him. Izuku didn't dodge. He took the hit on his shoulder, grunting as the impact bruised bone. Pain is information. He used the impact to rotate his body, swinging a heavy piece of rebar he had scavenged. He aimed for the knee joint. Clang! The joint buckled. The giant robot listed to the side. Izuku scrambled up its arm like a monkey, finding the emergency shut-off panel on the neck, something he had noted in the leaked blueprints he'd studied online, tactical research. He punched the panel open and ripped out the wires. 6 points. In the observation room, the teachers watched the screens. Who is that kid? Midnight asked, licking her lips. He's savage. No quirk? Student 7111. Midoriya Izuku, Samantha said, reading a file. Listed as quirkless? No, wait. Updated file says super strength uncontrolled. He hasn't used it yet, Sniper noted. He's dismantling them with tools and bare hands. He fights like a pro. Specifically, like Endeavor, Aizawa Shota finished, his eyes narrowed. Look at his stance. Look at how he prioritizes targets. He doesn't care about collateral damage to the environment. He just cares about the kill. Aizawa watched the screen. The boy was covered in grease and dust. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. But he wasn't slowing down. He's efficient, Aizawa admitted. But he's pushing his body too hard. He's going to burn out. Back in the city, Izuku was panting. 28 points. It wasn't enough. He needed more. He rounded a corner and saw Mineta Minoru struggling with a 2-pointer. The robot had the small boy cornered. Izuku didn't think about saving. He thought about clearing the board. He picked up a loose cobblestone and threw it. It flew like a fastball, smashing into the robot's rear camera. The robot spun around, confused. Izuku closed the distance. He tackled the robot, driving his shoulder into its center of mass, knocking it over. He stomped on its processor. Mineta looked up, teary-eyed. Thanks. Izuku didn't look at him. Move. You're in the kill zone. He ran off. 32 points. His lungs burned. His legs felt like they were filled with acid. The Hell Flame Doctrine demanded total exertion, but the human body had limits. Izuku was redlining. I need a weapon. A real one. He found a detached armor plate from a destroyed three-pointer. It was heavy, jagged steel. He wielded it like a shield. He tore through the remaining minutes. 40 points. 45. He was exhausted. He was bleeding. But he was winning, and then, the ground shook. The god of destruction. It started as a vibration in the soles of his shoes. Then, the windows of the skyscrapers rattled. Then, the sound of tearing metal and crushing concrete filled the air. At the far end of the main street, the zero-pointer emerged. It was colossal. It was larger than the buildings. Its green paint was scuffed, its red eyes glowing like demonic searchlights. It punched a building, and the structure crumbled like wet sand. Dust billowed out, choking the street. Run! It's huge! Forget it! It's not worth points. The other examinees turned and fled. It was a stampede of panic. Izuku stopped. He stood in the middle of the street, the wind from the robot's movement whipping his hair back. Threat level, catastrophic. Engagement, illogical. Survival protocol, retreat. Endeavor's voice was clear. It is an obstacle. It yields no reward. Bypass it. Izuku turned to run. It was the smart play. He had enough points. He had passed. He had proven his strength. He took a step away. Oh wow! The sound was faint, buried under the roar of collapsing masonry. Izuku froze. His head snapped back. Through the dust, he saw her. The girl with the brown hair. Uraraka. She was trapped under a massive slab of concrete. She was struggling, her face pale with terror. The zero-pointer was looming over her. Its massive tread was grinding forward. In 10 seconds she would be crushed. Don't engage, the soldier in his brain said. Someone else will get her. The teachers will stop it. But the teachers weren't there, and Endeavor wasn't there. And suddenly, the fire in Izuku's gut, the fire he had been trying to suppress, the fire he was terrified of, flared up. But it didn't feel like anger. It didn't feel like the desire to destroy. It felt like a scream. Saving people is winning. The image of Endeavor faded. The image of All Might took its place. But it wasn't the smiling All Might. It was the All Might who punched the sludge villain apart to save a boy he had already rejected. Izuku turned around. He didn't run. He sprinted. Hey! He screamed, trying to draw the robot's attention. It didn't hear him. It was a machine. It followed its programming. Destroy. Izuku reached the debris pile. He grabbed the slab trapping Uraraka. He pulled. His muscles screamed. It was too heavy. Even with his training, without a quirk, physics was physics. I can't move it! Izuku snarled. Uraraka looked up at him, tears in her eyes. Run, please. The robot's shadow fell over them. The massive metal hand was raising up, preparing to smash the street flat. Izuku looked at the hand. He looked at Uraraka. If I fight fair, I die. If I fight nice, people die. He looked at his right arm. The arm Endeavor had called a glass cannon. I accept the trade, Izuku whispered. He let go of the rock. He crouched. He reached inside himself. He didn't try to regulate the power. He didn't try to pull out 5%. He grabbed the entire storm. He grabbed the sun, one for all. Power flooded his system. It was agonizing. He felt his veins stretching, his bones creaking under the pressure. Red lightning crackled around his body, tearing up the asphalt beneath his feet. Smash! He launched himself. He didn't fly. He exploded upwards. The force of his jump shattered the ground for 20 meters, blowing the debris off Uraraka just from the wind pressure. Izuku rocketed into the air. He was a green streak of lightning against the dusty sky. He reached the face of the zero-pointer. He was eye level with the behemoth. Time seemed to slow down. He pulled his right arm back. The sleeve of his tracksuit disintegrated instantly. His skin glowed with a terrifying, ethereal light. Clench your buttocks, and yell, prominence. Izuku screamed, his mind blending his two mentors into one singular attack. Smash! He punched the robot in the face. Boom! It wasn't just a punch. It was a weather event. The impact created a vacuum. Then, the air rushed back in with a thunderclap that shattered windows for 3 blocks. The head of the zero-pointer didn't just dent, it caved in. The force traveled down the neck, shearing metal, blowing out hydraulics, and twisting the steel skeleton like a pretzel. The massive robot was lifted off the ground. It was thrown backward, crashing into the mock city with the force of a meteor. Izuku floated at the apex of his jump. For a second, he felt like a god. Then, the pain hit. His right arm was purple. Twisted. Broken in 4 places. He began to fall. Right. Landing. I have no cork to land. He looked down. The ground was rushing up fast. Legs. I have to sacrifice the legs. Think. He screamed at himself. He recalled Endeavor's lesson on falling. Roll. Dissipate kinetic energy. Protect the head. But you can't roll out of a 100-foot drop with a broken arm. Slap! Uraraka was there. Floating on a piece of debris. She slapped his cheek. Gravity vanished. Izuku floated, weightless. Uraraka vomited a rainbow. Her limit reached, and released her quirk. Izuku hit the ground. It wasn't soft, but it wasn't fatal. He tumbled, rolling over his broken arm, screaming through gritted teeth. He came to a stop in the middle of the ruined street. Silence descended on the battle center. The dust began to settle. The other students slowly crept out of their hiding spots. They stared at the destroyed zero-pointer. It was smoking, sparks showering down like fireworks. Then they looked at the boy. Izuku lay on his back. His right arm was a ruin. His legs were twisted from the jump's recoil. Is he dead? Someone whispered. What was that power? Izuku's eyes snapped open. He gasped, a wet, ragged sound. He forced his left arm, his only good limb, under his body. Not done. He pushed. Hey, don't move! A student yelled. You're hurt bad. Izuku ignored them. He gritted his teeth so hard one of them cracked. He pushed himself up to a sitting position. Then to a kneel. Then, shaking violently, he stood up. He swayed. His right arm dangled uselessly. His left leg buckled, but he caught himself. He looked at the zero-pointer. He checked for movement. Target neutralized. He turned his head. He saw Uraraka. She was safe. Civilians secure. 1 minute left. Present Mixed voice announced, sounding shaken. Izuku took a step forward. He dragged his broken leg. He looked for another target. Where? Izuku wheezed, blood dripping from his nose. Where is the next one? The other students backed away. They were terrified. He looked like a revenant. He looked like a zombie fueled by pure violence. Stop! A small, elderly woman pushed through the crowd. Recovery girl. That's enough, Sonny! She scolded, though her eyes were wide with concern. The exam is over for you. Look at your arm. Izuku looked at his arm. He blinked. The adrenaline was fading. The pain was rushing in like a tidal wave. Oh, Izuku said softly. It's broken. He looked at Recovery Girl. Did I pass? Recovery Girl looked at the destruction behind him. She looked at the terrified awe on the faces of the other students. Yes, she said gently. I think you made your point. Izuku nodded. His eyes rolled back in his head. He didn't fall backward. He fell forward. Even in unconsciousness, he fell toward the enemy. The aftermath. The infirmary smelled of antiseptic and gummy bears. Izuku woke up to the feeling of warmth. His arm was casted. His legs were wrapped. He felt drained, his energy reserves completely bottomed out by Recovery Girl's healing. You're awake. Izuku turned his head. All Might was sitting in a chair by the bed. But he wasn't smiling. He looked pale. Worried. All Might, Izuku croaked. Young Midoriya, All Might said softly. He leaned forward. That was reckless. You destroyed your arm. If Recovery Girl hadn't been on site, you might have suffered permanent nerve damage. I had to, Izuku said. She was in trouble. I know. And for that I am proud. You saved her. That is the essence of a hero. All Might paused. He clasped his large hands together. But the way you fought, before the zero-pointer. I watched the tapes. Izuku stiffened. You were brutal, my boy, All Might said. Efficient, yes. But cold. You dismantled those machines with a ferocity that, well, it didn't remind me of me. It reminded you of him, Izuku said. All Might sighed. Yes. Endeavor. Izuku looked at the ceiling. He taught me how to survive. He taught me that if I don't finish the fight instantly, people get hurt. Was I wrong? Did I fail? No, All Might said firmly. You didn't fail. You passed with flying colors. But power without a heart is dangerous. And a heart without control is suicidal. You are walking a razor's edge, Izuku. All Might stood up. He placed a hand on Izuku's uninjured shoulder. We have a lot of work to do. Not just on your body, but on your soul. I won't let his fire consume you. Izuku didn't answer immediately. He closed his eyes. Thank you, All Might. All Might left. A moment later, Izuku's phone buzzed on the bedside table. He picked it up with his left hand. Endeavor, I saw the footage. Izuku held his breath. Endeavor, your form on the smash was sloppy. You broke your arm because you didn't brace the recoil. But the tactical decision to engage the zero-pointer to secure rescue points was sound. A second text followed. Endeavor, 60 rescue points. 45 villain points. Total, 105. Top scorer, and then a third. Endeavor, acceptable. Izuku let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He dropped the phone onto his chest. He had survived. He was in UA. He looked at his cast. He thought about All Might's concern and Endeavor's cold praise. He was being pulled in two directions. The symbol of peace wanted a savior. The flame hero wanted a conqueror. Izuku closed his eyes. I'll be both, he thought, drifting back into sleep. Or I'll die trying. The locker room of UA High smelled of anticipation, deodorant, and the faint, underlying scent of fear. It was the smell of 15-year-olds realizing that the playground was closed, and the war zone was open. Midoriya Izuku stood in the corner, his back to the wall, a habit drilled into him over the last 10 months. Never expose your blind spot. He stripped off his school uniform, revealing the topography of his torment. The other boys were chatting, nervous energy spilling out in jokes and boasts. Kirishima Eijiro was talking about his hardness. Kaminari Denki was complaining about the curriculum. Then, the chatter died. One by one, they noticed. Izuku pulled his pea uniform shirt over his head, but not before the room got a good look at his torso. It wasn't just muscular. It was a road map of violence. There were deep purple bruises fading to yellow on his ribs. Scabs on his knuckles. The faint, white lines of heel burns on his forearms, souvenirs from heat resistance training. And his right arm, specifically the hand, was taped heavily, the fingers swollen and stiff. He didn't look like a student. He looked like a survivor of a natural disaster. Whoa, Mineta whispered, his eyes widening. Dude, what happened to you? Izuku paused, his head popping through the collar of the blue tracksuit. He looked around the room. He saw the shock in their eyes. He saw the way Ida Tenya adjusted his glasses, looking disturbed. He saw Bakugo Katsuki in the opposite corner, staring with a mixture of recognition and hatred. Training, Izuku said simply. That's not training, Kirishima said, stepping closer with a frown. That looks like you got mugged by a villain. Are you okay, man? I'm functional, Izuku replied. He zipped up the jacket. Pain is just information. It tells you the limit. If you don't find the limit, you can't push past it. The room went silent. It was something Endeavor had said to him 1,000 times. The limit is a suggestion, Midoriya. Burn through it. Izuku picked up his shoes and walked toward the door. As he passed Bakugo, the blonde stiffened, sparks popping in his palms. Don't think you're hot stuff just because you have some scars, Deku, Bakugo growled, his voice low. Paint doesn't turn a pebble into a boulder. Izuku stopped. He didn't turn his body. He just turned his head, his green eyes dull and analytical. A pebble can shatter a windshield if it's thrown hard enough, Kaken, Izuku said quietly. Or if it's fired from a cannon. He walked out, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. The pea grounds were vast, an open expanse of dirt, and track under the high sun. Aizawa Shota stood in the center, looking like a man who had slept 3 hours in the last week. He held a tablet in one hand and a softball in the other. Assessment test, Aizawa droned. Quirk apprehension. No ceremonies. No orientation. We're skipping the nonsense, the class murmured. Uraraka Ochako raised her hand. But the ceremony? The guidance counselor meeting? If you want to play school, go to a normal high school, Aizawa said, his voice cutting through the air like a razor wire. UA is not about traditions. It's about survival. Heroism is not fair. Villains are not fair. Natural disasters are not fair. We are here to teach you how to overturn the unfairness. He turned his bloodshot eyes on them. Softball throw. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. Endurance run. Grip strength. Upper body lift. Seated toe touch. Sit-ups. You did these in middle school without quirks. Today you use your quirks. He looked at Bakugo. Bakugo. You finished first in the entrance exam. What was your softball throw in middle school? 67 meters, Bakugo scoffed. Try it with your quirk. Stay in the circle. Bakugo stepped up. He stretched his arms, a feral grin spreading across his face. He wound up. Die. Boom. The explosion propelled the ball into the stratosphere. Smoke curled from Bakugo's palm. Aizawa held up the device. 705.2 meters. The class erupted. Awesome! 700 meters? That's insane! This is going to be fun! Aizawa's expression darkened. The air around him seemed to drop in temperature. Fun? He whispered. You have 3 years to become heroes. You think it's going to be fun? He smiled. It was a terrifying, jagged expression. Right. Let's make it interesting. The student who ranks last in total points will be judged as having no potential and will be instantly expelled. Eh? Panic rippled through the group. That's not fair. Uraraka cried out. It's the first day. Natural disasters aren't fair, Aizawa repeated coldly. Go home if you can't handle the pressure. Izuku stood in the back of the group. He didn't panic. He didn't gasp. He calculated. Expulsion. It's a logical threat. Yui has a reputation for ruthlessness. However, expelling a student on day 1 is a waste of resources unless the student is truly irredeemable. It is a stress test. He wants to see who cracks. Izuku looked at his classmates. They were terrified. Their heart rates were elevated. Their focus was shattered. Good, Izuku thought. Panic creates mistakes. Mistakes lower scores. While they worry about fairness, I will worry about execution. He clenched his fists. The phantom sensation of the hell flame training burned in his mind. Objective, survival. Method, maximum efficiency. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Izuku lined up against Ida Tenya. He looked at Ida's legs. Engine calves. Reciprocating burst engines. He has high torque. He will dominate the start. Izuku didn't have a speed quirk. Not one he could use without breaking his legs, anyway. He had one for all, but he still couldn't control the output perfectly. If he used it to run, he might blow out his hamstrings. Rely on the machine, Endeavor's voice growled. The body we built. Ready. Start. Ida exploded off the line, his engines roaring. He crossed the finish line in a blur. 3.04 seconds. The machine announced. Izuku didn't have engines. But he had technique. He used the drop-step launch Endeavor had taught him, throwing his center of gravity forward until he was almost falling, then driving his legs into the ground like pistons. He pumped his arms violently. Every step was a controlled explosion of fast-twitch muscle fiber. He wasn't running. He was tearing up the track. He crossed the line. 5.51 seconds. It wasn't superhuman. But for a boy who was quirkless 10 months ago, it was monstrous. It was the speed of an Olympic athlete. Ida looked back, impressed. Midoriya-kun! That was incredible form. No quirk? Just mechanics, Izuku panted, wiping sweat from his forehead. He didn't smile. He checked his time against the average. Above average. Acceptable. Test 2, grip strength. Shoji Mizo, 540 kilograms. Izuku gripped the device. He squeezed. He visualized crushing a villain's windpipe, a visualization technique Endeavor insisted on. Squeeze until the threat stops moving, the machine beeped. 76 kilograms. Whoa, Zero said. That's high for a normal grip. Izuku frowned. Not high enough. I need to improve forearm density. Test 3, standing long jump, this was it. A chance to use a sliver of power. Izuku stood at the line. He focused on his legs. He didn't need 100%. He didn't even need 5%. He just needed a spark. He closed his eyes. He felt the storm of one for all in his gut. He grabbed a tiny wisp of it, a static charge, and routed it to his calves. One for all, 1%. He jumped. The ground cracked slightly under his toes. He sailed through the air, clearing the sandbox entirely. He landed in a roll, dissipating the momentum. He stood up and dusted himself off. No broken bones. Just a slight ache in his ankles. Control, he thought. It's possible. Bakugo watched him from the sidelines, his eyes twitching. He used a quirk. I saw the lightning. Since when? Since when does Deku have a quirk? The test continued. Side steps, Mineta dominated. Sit-ups, Izuku went until the machine stopped counting. Izuku was consistent. He was a machine. He wasn't flashy like Todoroki Shoto, who slid through the 50-meter dash on ice, or Bakugo, who flew. But he was relentless. He attacked every test with a grim seriousness that unsettled his classmates. He's kinda scary, Ashido Mina whispered to Tsuyu Ajiri. He hasn't smiled once. Maybe he's focused, Karo. No, Ashido shuddered. He looks like he's at war. The climax, the softball throw. It was Izuku's turn. He walked into the circle. His heart rate was steady, 65 BPM. He looked at the ball. If I throw this normally, I get maybe 50 meters. I need points. I need to show Aizawa that I am not a liability. He had to use one for all. He recalled the entrance exam. The pain of the broken arm. The raw, untamed power. I can't break my arm again. Not here. If I break it, I fail the endurance test that comes after. He looked at Endeavor in his mind. The flame hero was standing with his arms crossed, engulfed in flames. Flash fire fist. Endeavor explained in the memory. You condense the flame. You compress it until it is white hot. You hold the pressure. And then you release it at the point of impact. It is not a continuous stream. It is a pulse. A gunshot. Izuku gripped the ball. I don't have fire. I have force. But the principle is the same. Don't fill the whole arm. Keep the power in the core. Move it through the shoulder. The elbow. The wrist. Release it only at the fingertip. He widened his stance. It wasn't a baseball pitcher's stance. It was a martial arts stance, the foundation of the Hellflame style. Grounded. Solid. He took a deep breath. Power, flow. Red veins began to glow on his skin. The air around him crackled. He wound up. Smash! He threw his arm forward. Suddenly, the power vanished. The storm in his gut was cut off. The lightning died. The ball left his hand with the pathetic force of a normal throw. It landed at 46 meters. What? Izuku blinked. I felt it go. It just disappeared. I erased your quirk. Izuku turned. Aizawa stood there, his scarf floating, his hair defying gravity. His eyes were glowing red. He looked demonic. That entrance exam, Aizawa said, walking closer. It was irrational. You have a powerful quirk, but you shatter your own body to use it. You're a liability. Aizawa stopped in front of Izuku. He didn't look impressed by Izuku's scars or his conditioning. What can you do with a broken arm? Nothing. You become a burden. You become someone else's problem to save. Izuku met Aizawa's gaze. I didn't intend to break it this time, Izuku said calmly. Intent doesn't matter. Results matter. Aizawa deactivated his quirk, blinking his dry eyes. You remind me of a reckless hero who retired early. Just raw power with no brakes. I'm telling you now, Midoriya, you cannot become a hero with that mindset. Aizawa pointed at the circle. I gave you your quirk back. You have one more throw. Get it over with so I can expel you. Izuku stood there. The word stung. Liability. Burden. But then, another voice drowned out Aizawa. Show them! Endeavor roared in his mind. Show them that you are not a glass cannon! Show them you are a precision instrument! Izuku picked up the ball. He didn't look at Aizawa. He looked at the horizon. He thinks I'm reckless. He thinks I'm All Might's sloppy copy. Izuku moved his feet. He dropped his hips lower. This was the stance Endeavor used for jet burn. I'll show him. Izuku closed his eyes. He summoned one for all again. Don't flood the arm. Keep it in the gut. He began the motion. The rotation started at his ankles. It traveled up his thighs. His hips snapped forward. Now. Move the power. He pushed the energy into his shoulder. Too much. Compress it. He pushed it to his elbow. Compress it more. He pushed it to his fingertip. Now. At the exact moment the ball left his hand, Izuku released the valve. He fired the cannon, but only through the tip of his index finger. Boom! The air exploded. A ring of dust blasted outward from the circle, blowing Aizawa's hair back. The ball screamed into the sky, breaking the sound barrier with a sharp crack. Izuku didn't scream. He exhaled sharply, a hiss of breath through his teeth. The ball vanished into the clouds. Aizawa looked at the tablet. His eyes widened slightly. 705.3 meters. He beat Bakugo by 0.1 meters. Izuku stood in the circle. He held up his right hand. His index finger was purple, swollen and broken. But the rest of his arm was fine. He turned to Aizawa. He was sweating, his face pale from the sharp spike of pain, but his expression was defiant. I'm still standing, Izuku said, his voice ragged. And the threat is neutralized. Aizawa stared at him. Then, slowly, a creepy smile spread across his face. Startling, Aizawa muttered. Zero hesitation. The confrontation. DKU. The screen was primal. Bakugo Katsuki was charging. Explosions popped in his hands. His eyes were white with rage. You bastard! Tell me how you did that. You're supposed to be quirkless. He was fast. Faster than the robots. Izuku watched him come. Threat, incoming. Distance, 10 meters. Speed, high. Emotional state, unstable. Most students would flinch. Most would back up. Izuku stepped forward. He dropped into a grappling stance. He prepared to intercept the right hook he knew was coming. Catch the wrist. Pivot. Shoulder throw. Dislocate if necessary. The calculation was cold. It was violent. It was Endeavor's programming overriding the childhood friend. Bakugo was 3 meters away. Suddenly, white tape wrapped around Bakugo's chest. He was yanked back, gagging. Whatever. Aizawa sighed, holding the capture weapon taut. My eyes are dry. Don't make me use my quirk so much. Let me go. Bakugo struggled. He lied. He's been lying for years. We're wasting time, Aizawa said. Bakugo, stand down or you're expelled. Midoriya, get back in line. Aizawa released the tape. Bakugo fell forward, panting. He looked up at Izuku with pure venom. You! Bakugo hissed. You think you're better than me? Izuku looked down at him. He didn't look triumphant. He looked tired. I don't think about you at all, Kaken, Izuku lied. He channeled the arrogance he had seen Shoto use against Endeavor. I'm looking at the top. If you're in the way, I'll go through you. He turned and walked back to the group. The class parted for him like the Red Sea. They looked at his broken finger, then at his face. Dude, Kirishima whispered as Izuku passed. That was manly, but terrifying. Uraraka looked at him with concern. Deku-kun, your finger. It heals, Izuku muttered, clutching his wrist. Shoto was watching from the back of the group. His eyes were narrowed. He recognized the stance Izuku had used. He recognized the hip rotation. That was father's technique, Shoto thought, disgust curling in his gut. He's really turning him into a copy. The results. The sun was setting. The students gathered around the holographic display. Here are the results, Aizawa said boredly. Total score is a composite of all events. Izuku looked at the board. 1. Yayoro Zumomo. 2. Todoroki Shoto. 3. Bakugo Katsuki. 4. Ida Tenya. 7. Midoriya Izuku. He wasn't first. Without a quirk for most tests, his physical scores could only carry him so far against engines and explosions. But he wasn't last. By the way, Aizawa added, turning off the display. The expulsion was a lie. It was a logical ruse to draw out your maximum potential. Way out? The class screamed. I knew it! Yaoyorosa sighed, clutching her chest. It was obviously a pedagogical technique. Izuku stared at Aizawa. No, Izuku analyzed. He's lying now. He was ready to do it. If I had thrown 40 meters, I would be gone. He's testing our relief response. Aizawa caught Izuku's eye. For a second, there was a mutual understanding. I see you, and you see me. Midoriya, Aizawa said. Go to recovery, girl. Get that finger fixed. Tomorrow, the real hell begins. The shadow. As the students filed out, Aizawa stayed behind. He felt a presence behind him. You were watching, Aizawa said to the empty air. All Might stepped out from the corner of the building. He was in his buff form, but he was slouching slightly. Aizawa-kun, All Might said. You were hard on him. He's hard on himself, Aizawa replied, looking at the retreating back of Midoriya Izuku. He doesn't fight like a kid, All Might. He fights like a soldier. And that throwing stance, that hip rotation. Aizawa turned to face the number one hero. That was the Hellflame style. Endeavor's signature. All Might flinched. Yes. Young Midoriya has sought extra instruction. Extra instruction? Aizawa scoffed. He moves like a mini Endeavor. He calculates pain tolerance. He suppresses emotion. He's efficient, I'll give him that. But he's dangerous. Aizawa put his hands in his pockets. You gave him your power, didn't you? All Might nodded slowly. I did. Well, Aizawa sighed, looking up at the orange sky. You gave a nuclear warhead to a boy who's being trained by a pyromaniac to burn the world down. I hope you know what you're doing. Aizawa began to walk away. Because if that kid snaps, Aizawa called back, he won't just break his bones. He'll break everything around him. The walk home. Izuku walked out of the school gates. His finger was bandaged. He was exhausted. Deku! He stopped. Uraraka was running up to him, Ida trailing behind. Hey! Uraraka beamed. That was amazing! You were so cool at the end. Even though it was scary. Indeed, Ida chopped the air. Your resolve is commendable, Midoriya-kun. Though you should really see a doctor about your bone density. Izuku looked at them. They were smiling. They were bright. For a moment, the Endeavor programming wavered. He wanted to smile back. He wanted to be a normal high schooler. Thanks, Izuku said, a small, genuine smile cracking his mask. I just did what I had to do. We're going to the station. Walk with us? Uraraka asked. Izuku opened his mouth to say yes. Then his phone buzzed. Endeavor, I saw the scores. 7th is unacceptable. You relied on base stats too much. Come to the agency immediately. We need to work on your quirk integration. Izuku's smile faded. The mask slid back into place. I can't, Izuku said softly. I have stuff to do. Oh, Uraraka's face fell. Okay. See you tomorrow? Yeah. Tomorrow. Izuku turned and walked away, heading toward the sleek black car waiting at the curb. He got in. The door closed, sealing him in the darkness. As the car drove away, Shoto watched from the gate. He's going back to the cage, Shoto whispered. He clenched his fist, ice creeping up his arm. I won't let him drag you down, Midoriya. I'll prove that you don't need his fire to be a hero. Shoto turned and walked the other way, the frost following in his footsteps. The class was formed. The monsters were gathered. And the war for Midoriya Izuku's soul had just begun.